Welcome back to Legalese 123, where we are covering cases across America. Welcome back to Legalese 123. I'm your host, Missy K. Hope everybody is doing well today. What do we got going on today? Well, geez Louise, everything was popping off yesterday, and I did my best to give you all of the breaking news and everything that was happening. There's still so much going on. Currently, right now in the Brian Walsh case, they had this morning 9 jurors, and I haven't checked the latest, but I'll give you an update later on today how many jurors they accepted today. They're looking for the sweet 16 jurors. Now, do the jurors know that they're not allowed to have any social media once they've been impaneled? Thanksgiving holiday is coming up. Are they going to be able to go on their devices during this period? I don't know. Maybe it doesn't start until they actually get impaneled on December the 1st. I don't know. That is just so bizarre to me. Do the jurors know that this trial is going to last anywhere between 4 to 6 weeks? Is that actually the case now that he has pleaded to counts 2 and 3? And now he's only being charged for the murder of Anna Walsh. Does that change the circumstances of what the prosecution is going to present as evidence? I can assume it will. Does that lessen the time frame? Do they have less witnesses then to present? So does that make it only like 2 weeks instead of 4 weeks? And will it be finished in time for Christmas? I always worry about, do juries want to resolve the case as quickly as possible so they can do their, holiday celebrations? It always bothers me when a trial is set right up or butt against a holiday, but that's the way our world turns, so there's nothing you can do about that. Karen Reed stuff is popping off left, right, and center. As you heard yesterday, we covered the civil case and what she alleges in her civil case. Again, she has a hearing, a status hearing this Friday. She has a new judge. So the new judge will, of course, listen to all of the parties. Karen Reed wants to add in these other culprits into her civil action and tie it all together, which I would think that a judge would want to do. Then if those parties then file a countersuit against Karen's civil suit, it will all be tied up in a nice little bow package. So who knows what's going to happen? There's a lot going on in Aiden Carney, Turtle Boy's case as well. The prosecution was supposed to respond to their motions to dismiss. They were supposed to respond by this Monday. So far, Monday's gone by, nothing. Tuesday's gone by, and nothing. They have a hearing set for December 5th, and they too got a new judge in that case. And it is very bizarre. Why and how did a new judge appear? The prosecution didn't ask for it. The defense didn't ask for it. Krupp was the judge that was going to hear the December 5th hearing, and he's no longer the judge assigned to the case. Some bizarre things are happening behind the scenes. And then, as you might have heard, I posted about the sidebars in Karen Reed's trial number 1 and trial number 2. As I mentioned before, there is a lawyer in, I believe, the Carolinas, I don't know if it's South Carolina, North Carolina. Her name is Corey Hopkins. She has been filing motions to get those sidebars released. And what a sidebar is when a judge goes up, in Karen Reed's cases, the lawyers were not allowed to make speaking objections. They would just stand up and say, objection. And sometimes she knew what they were objecting to, and sometimes she didn't. And so they would have to go to the side of the desk of the judge. They would put on that noisy machine to whisper, they call it the whisper, to hush out any of their conversations because it's not supposed to be heard in the courtroom to the jury because it is not evidence in a case. But those sidebars can contain very interesting information about how she ruled on certain situations that they were objecting to and what her rulings were in reference to maybe like things that might have popped up, etc. So those will be very telling as well. And when those come in and get analyzed, it will be extremely uh, very interesting. So, all right, what are we going to talk about today? So I made this lovely little thing here. We are going to go from, let's see, I'm going to do it again. Oh, I could have done it again. Oh my goodness. We are hopping from Massachusetts to Idaho. So let's go ahead and add this to the stage. All right. If you haven't heard or you haven't been involved in they call it several different things. It's the University of Idaho murders, it's Moscow murders, the Idaho Four, Brian Koberger. So I was hesitant on covering this. I cover these things because it's important to learn education wise when a crime happens, how do the investigators, etc., investigate the crime, and then when a trial happens, what evidence comes in, and just kind of go over the legal process. Today, we're not going to quite do that. We're just kind of doing an overall of the University of Idaho. And this case is very near and dear to my heart because I lived in Moscow, Idaho, and we moved prior to the murders happening. And it's very sad. Friends and family have been very devastated by this because Moscow is a very quaint and very small town. It has the university occupies part of the town, and then the other part is the where like Main Street is, and I'll show you some pictures and where Main Street is. So the university is on one side, and then like downtown is on the other. The University of Idaho is a major economic factor within Moscow, Idaho. There are friends of mine who are either faculty or they're the ones that run the university, right? They are a major employer to the town of Moscow. I do have a lot of friends who are not employed and do not have affiliation with the University of Idaho. But in my capacity, we had a lot of ties to the university, and it is a special place. So let's go talk a little bit more about how special Moscow is. So just before we moved to Moscow, Idaho, USA Today had come out with their rankings of the safest places to live in the United States, and Moscow was like in the top 5. And we were like, oh my gosh, look, we're moving to this one of the safest towns in America. And then Koberger came and ruined it all. But that's all right because currently the town is healing. Everybody is starting to gather their thoughts and prayers and are slowly moving forward. So here are just some pictures of Moscow, Idaho. These are my personal pictures. We're on top of a mountain in one of these. So people generally think of Idaho. Oh, Idaho has potatoes. They do. They are a massive producer of potatoes, but in our area, it was very mountainous and very foresty, and farmlands. And when I say farmlands, they had a variety of crops that they were producing. Here you see right here, this is the they call it rapeseed canola oil. So the fields would go from this green to a bright yellow. So you would be driving and then you just see this sea of yellow. It was amazing. And then this is where lovely rainbows would come out. This is the canola fields as I just showed you. This is, this what the sky looked like. This is one of the areas where I lived. I also have to show you these lovely pictures that I took myself. So this one here is, oh, it might not do it because, oh, Oh, it's not going to do it. Let's see, because I have the background thingy on it. It might not do it. Okay, here we go. Look. So this is, so they were a massive producer of wheat. So these are the wheat fields, and there they are combining the wheat fields. And one of the most uh, devastating things and critical things is that these wheat fields would get really dry. So during the summertime, it would barely rain. So it was very, what I call very drought and very dry. And so when the farmers were getting their crops, they would be very careful because their combines could potentially catch the crops on fire. And this was actually taken at my friend's house. She lived next to a farm field. And the year after I took this one, all of this field was on fire and her house was at risk. And the police and fire came out to put the fire out. It was really impressive. This is also another picture I took, and it's kind of hard to see. It's kind of hard to see, but you can see that it almost looks like a mountain. It almost looks like this is the side of the mountain, and that these are, oh, well, I'm not going to take the background off. Here we go. These are, they look like sand dunes or they look like sediment from a mountain, but they actually aren't. This is a field. And it was um, very, very hilly and mountains. We lived on a mountain, very hilly and very up and down. So it was not flat at all. So one of the very first things that you learn when you go to Moscow is that it is not pronounced Moscow, it is pronounced Moscow. And this is a little meme that I had found when I had first moved there, and people would tell me how the town was pronounced. They're very, very, very serious about how it's pronounced. So these are some pictures of what downtown looks like during the summertime. There would be they would close off the main street, and the farmers market would take place on Friday, or sorry, on Saturday. And they have one movie theater, and the movie theater there would play Saturday morning cartoons. So the cartoons that you grew up in the 80s, Bugs Bunny, Tom and Jerry, um, some of those kind of, laughy ones from old times. Pink Panther, I think, was in there as well. And it was just a very enjoyable time to go out to the farmers market on Saturdays. Um, it was very incredible. So this is just some pictures from the town and what the town looks like. It's just your average sort of main street town where they've got businesses and restaurants. Again, very, very, very magical. Again, these are some more pictures that I took. These are kind of what the wheat fields look like. And so this is when it's all dry. And before that, you get it's all green. And so in the springtime, it is a sea of green. And when I say green, sometimes it's the you know how you get like a variation of different green hues. And during the springtime, when it was windy outside, it would it would wave, and you would see different reflections of greens coming through. It was incredible. And then this is obviously when it was harvested. But before it's harvested, it would wave, right? So the amber waves of grain song from America the Beautiful it just completely rings out here. So when I say it's a magical place, these are the things that I'm talking about, how magical it was. So the magic disappeared on November 13th, 2022 at approximately 4 a.m. when the sad, sad occurrence happened when the four victims, Kaylee Gonzalez, Madison Mogan, and Xana Kernodle and Ethan Chapin, were killed in their off-campus residence. Um, some say that they were sleeping, some say that they were awake. I'm not going to go through the details of that. This stream is just to talk about what happened and kind of just give you sort of an overall view of the case. There were two roommates who had survived and who were actually living in the residence at the time, which was Dylan Mortensen, who actually saw Koberger all dressed in black, and Bethany Funk. Bethany is right here, and she's right here. This is all of the four roommates, all of the five roommates together, and this was taken the morning before the murders happened. Because remember, the murders happened like at 4 a.m. the next morning. So, one of the interesting things of the timeline of when, so the murders happened, right? And Chief Fry waited a couple of days before he came out with any statements. And in doing so, he did not relieve the fear of the residents and the students in that vicinity. Because for something like this to happen, it really shook the community to its core. Many people didn't know what was happening. They didn't know how they were murdered. They didn't know the who, what, where, when, how, and why, right? And so people were panicked and were worried that there's a serial killer or a killer loose, right? Again, quiet, mis- very quiet, quaint town. Nobody thought that anybody was going to come and kill them in the middle of the night. There have been some instances in Moscow where they have had some criminal activities of this nature, but it usually was there's two incidences I can speak of. One was a person who was disgruntled and had some mental disabilities, and he went up into the tower and went out into the square and was shooting at police. Unfortunately, Officer Newbell died of his injuries in that case, and so they honor him every year. The second incident happened. I was there during this time frame where a uh, person had some mental disabilities, and you can call it mental, you can call it domestic. I don't know if he was looking for money, but he was adopted. He went to his adoptive parents' house. The mother was home. They had an argument. He shot the mother. Then he went looking for a family friend at the insurance agency, shot the insurance agent, shot another person who was there, then went through the drive-through of the Arby's looking for another family friend and shot her at the Arby's. And that was that was pretty intense because here's the person going on a shooting spree throughout town. And again, quiet, quaint town, and you're just like, there's no way. And so, again, everybody was high alert on that one. But then once it was revealed that it was somebody who knew somebody, that eased everyone's fears. In this case, nobody knew who did it. And there's pure rampant speculation. Could it be drugs? Could it be an illicit affair with one of the girls? Could it be this? Could it be that? Just, it was just pure mayhem. And as Officer Fry did not give full details, because you keep your investigation close to the vest, when he did come out and say things, it was very careful and very curated. Now, I don't remember exactly when they came out with this statement, but the statement was, and I think it was afterwards, whether or not the, the occupants of the house were the target or whether it was the house itself. And I was like, well, how can the house be a target? That doesn't make any sense to me. But it does. In the context of their house was, here's the pictures of their house and kind of what it looks like. This is from the front view. This is obviously when it's boarded up, but you can see the upper levels. And then this is the side view where you can see that this is the front of the house. You go up the stairs, you're on the second floor, which held their kitchen, and Xana's room was right here. And then the third floor had up here, it had uh, I'm not sure which one's which, but Kaylee and Madison's room, or maybe this is Madison's room, this is Kaylee's room, and the bathroom was in between. This is the front of the house, and then this is the back of the house. You can see right here, there's a sliding glass door in the back of the house, and right here, there's a balcony. This is, I believe, Kaylee's room. There's a bathroom, and then Maddie's room is right here. So as you can see, there's also a very small wooded area. When they show pictures on TV and stuff like that, it makes it look like, oh, they're out in the woods. They aren't. You'll see, we're going to go over a video here in just a few minutes, but you're going to see that their house was planted right next to other houses and stuff. And so when you say it was at the house that was targeted, what I mean by that is these were 5 college students. You live in Moscow, Idaho. Most people don't lock their doors. Most people, there's no one stealing anything, no one's doing anything. It is very, very safe, one would think, right? And so I can understand that, oops, you forgot to lock your door. I even think I heard some rumors that some of the doors didn't lock, like the patio doors didn't lock. So, you know, was the house the target because it was so easily accessible that he could get in? And I do believe that he did go in when he was I believe that he was watching them, and I believe when he saw them leave, that he entered the house and to see what the easiest way was to enter the house, and that he knew the layout of the house. So he did. He entered through this sliding glass door, which led to the second floor where the kitchen is and Xana's room, etc. Went upstairs to the third floor to Maddie's room because Kaylee and Maddie were in his room or in their room. He did the deed there and then ran downstairs and got Xana and then got Ethan. So let's move on to the next thing. So this was given out. Unfortunately, I don't know the exact date that this was written, but this was written from the newspaper, the local newspaper, from the probable cause affidavit that Officer Payne put together. And this was, oh, I know, this was done after he was arrested. So Koberger committed the crimes November 13th, early morning hours of November 13th, 2022. He wasn't arrested until I think like December the 30th, somewhere close to New Year's Eve. And the reason why is that the investigators wanted to cross all their T's and dot all of their I's to make sure that they had everything in place, that when they went to go arrest him, that it was solid. Perhaps maybe because he was a criminology student at WSU and he knew things, so they wanted to make sure that they had everything. Now, in this process, November 13th is when this happened. It wasn't until like 3 days after that the first interview from police came out to the public. They, again, never said anything about what they knew. Midway through, they stated that they were looking for a white Hyundai Elantra, and they had actually given the wrong dates. Because immediately after the incident, they went and looked for video footage. There is even, I'm going to back up a little bit here. So now all of the stuff is coming out from the trial because there was a gag order placed on the trial. So information was not coming out. And if it did, it was wrong that it came out. So now that the trial is over, that he had pled guilty, all of the information is coming out now. And so you're getting bits and pieces put together. And there are a couple of really good YouTubers who are compiling all of this to give you further details as to how this crime was committed. So In doing so, the investigators were looking for this Elantra because they had some video footage which was grainy, and they couldn't at that time distinguish what the make and model was. They had an idea, so they had an idea of the make, but they didn't know the year, and they were second guessing as to what year it was. And mind you, Moscow is a very small town. Where Koberger was at WSU, that too was a very small town. I personally think that they knew it was him and that they knew there was that it was a white Elantra and that it belonged to him because Koberger had been pulled over by the Idaho State Police. No, Latah County Police. So in in any area, right, you've got Moscow Police, and then you've got the county police, Latah County Police, and then you've got the state police. And Latah County police officers are uh, their jurisdiction is Moscow, Idaho. Like you see Latah County police officers all the time. So I believe a Latah County police officer had pulled him over. So in the process of them looking for this Elantra, I am quite sure that they typed in white Hyundai Elantra and who got pulled over, whatever, and they had Koberger's name pretty quickly, right? And then there was a small instance where they had a WSU police officer going around his apartment complex and had found his car as well. I think there's some video footage of that as well. So in the earlier stages, police acted like they didn't know anything, and people were criticizing them. You don't know anything, and what's going on, and you can't tell us anything. And again, they were holding things so tight to their vest, they didn't want to release anything. So this is written up from the PCA, Public Probable Cause Affidavit by Payne, who is a Moscow police officer. But when this incident happened, the Moscow Police Department, contacted the Idaho State Police and the FBI immediately. They're like, this is beyond us. Why this? There's no way we, as a little police department, are going to be able to solve this. And or they didn't have the resources to do it either. So they immediately called in these other agencies to come and assist them with solving this crime. Because again, it's like, who would do this? Who would do this? So remember that there were 4 victims involved, plus the 2 roommates who survived. That's 6 people. They have to go through all of their electronic devices, all of their social media, and they were on social media very heavily. They had Snapchat, they had Instagram, they had TikTok. Um, they were also involved in sororities. Could it be somebody from the university? Could it be somebody who was one of their friends? Could it be somebody in the town? Could it be somebody outside of the town? The other thing that they did was they had the federal investigations, the BAU unit, the behavior analysis unit of the FBI, also did a profile as to what type of person did this. And we'll go over that in just a few minutes. So here we are. This is from the PCA, and the PCA was so detailed. You were just like dumbfounded as to the information that they had just within a month, we'll say 6 weeks time, right? So at 2:42 a.m., they have Koberger cell phone data located at his residence in Pullman, Washington. At 2:47, the cell phone is traveling south through Pullman, and then it stops reporting connecting to the network. Now, mind you, this is not as detailed as we know now, with more camera footage that has come out, as well as more cell phone data that has come out. And we'll go over, and we're not going to get as detailed as, every second of his movements, but this just is an overall currently right now. So he's traveling from Pullman, Washington. They have him on video and cell phone, traveling from his apartment to the Moscow area. So between 3:29 and 4:20, the Hyundai Elantra makes three initial passes to the 1122 King Road. Residents leaving via will enter drive, and we'll go directly over that all that information. It returns its fourth time at 4:04 a.m. driving eastbound on King Road. It leaves the area at 4:20, traveling at a high rate of speed. So if you've ever seen any of the videos where he's leaving the residence, he almost crashes his car. Um, and by the way, the police station. So the police wanted to build a new police station. They were currently bunking or in the same building with the Latah County Sheriff's Department, and they are two separate entities. And they had proposed to build a new police station, and that went through, and they built it just south of town, and it's right by 1122 King Road. So if he would, there's two ways to get in. He went in the back way, which would have avoided the police station. Calculated? I'm assuming the answer is yes. All right, so at 4:48 a.m., the cell phone comes back on. So he turned his cell phone off. And so you can kind of see this little map. It's really cute. So here's the town of Moscow, and they're saying, again, this is written by the local newspaper in Moscow. I think it's maybe the Moscow Pullman Daily News, if I'm not mistaken. So here's one, here's two. He travels. This is the only way to travel to Moscow and Pullman. And he goes to 1122 King Road, which is right here. I lived over here. Um, so this is where the university is. This is where the town is. These are where residents people are. This is where there are businesses. The Target moved in over here. This is where Winco is. Anyways, so here he is at 3, and here he is at 4. His cell phone comes, is that, no, that's not, that's 3. So here at 4, his cell phone comes back on around Blaine near Highway 95. 95 is the only sort of exit out of Moscow. So remember, there are lots of farms. This is all like farmland, or this is uh, foresty land, etc. And there are lots of like back farm roads and stuff like that. But if you're not familiar with the area, you will get lost, especially at night, because this happened at night. And some of the farm roads aren't really farm roads. I learned the hard way that there was sort of a makeshift farm road that was like dirt, and it condensed into like just this and had huge ditches on the side. It was really scary. So you have to be careful where you're going if you don't know where you're going. So his phone connects at 4. Then here's number 5. Between 4:50 and 5:27, the cell phone pings near Genesee, um, which I have some friends and stuff who live there. And then this is obviously the Idaho side. And then so Idaho and Washington State they're just right next to each other. It only takes like 15, 20 minutes to go from Moscow to Pullman via this highway. So this is the long way down. So this is where he traveled to, but didn't go back. There are a lot of cameras over here. Um, there are a lot of cameras around here. Around the businesses, there are a lot of cameras. Anyways, so he travels down here. Here we are at 5, where his cell phone pings in Uniontown. Then we get back up to 6, which is right here. And well, this is 5. They're saying 5 is right through here as well. 6, the cell phone shows that Koberger is at his Pullman residence and travel and okay, so 6. Okay, so sorry. Oh, I can't read down here. Let's see if I can move this. Why are you? Oops, sorry, let's go back. Okay, I can't read here because this slide thing's in the way. I don't know why. Oh, there we go. Okay, so finally he gets to Pullman at 5:25 a.m. And the white sedan is recorded by by 5 cameras in the Pullman and WSU campus. Then, so that's between 5 and 5:27 a.m. What did he do for between 4 hours? Well, we do know that he took a picture of himself, showered, it looks like, took a picture of himself with a selfie. So around 9 a.m., he again, travels back to the Moscow area, uh, kind of in and around the residence area. And then 9:32, the cell phone returns he goes back to Pullman. And then 12:36, the cell phone shows up at Clarkston. So so he must have turned it off, right? It shows up at Clarkston. Maybe he took a nap. Shows up around Clarkston, Lewiston. He is at Kate's Cup of Joe, and then he goes to the Albertsons grocery store. There's video of him there. And then it's just goes on. You can read the rest. So there's video of him at the Kate's Cup of Joe. There's video of him at the Costco. He tries to go into Costco. They say you don't have a membership, so you can't come in. And then he goes to Albertson and he buys some drinks or something like that. That's the morning of the incident. And noonish is around when the police are called. So the police are called and find out that there's been a homicide. Well, the girls are scared and they think that they see Xana and they're fearful that she is passed out. So that's why the call comes in. It says that she's passed out. Unfortunately, one of their friends was the one that discovered the bodies, and he, I think, knew that they weren't just passed out. And they did not know that the two girls upstairs were also inflicted with wounds. So, as you know, there was a knife sheath that was found in between Maddie and Kaylee. It is suspected or speculated that Zaina had gotten a DoorDash delivery around this time, around 4 a.m., and she had gone to the kitchen and had claimed that she said somebody is here. Now, we don't know if because the sliding glass door was open or whether or not it's speculated that he might have brought what's called a kill kit and that he might have left that in the kitchen, and that is what she recognized. And she was like, what's going on? So because she made that statement, and I believe Dylan said that she heard her make that statement. At that point, did she then run upstairs to the girls and heard what was happening? And then he was doing things with the girls and then ran down the stairs because Xana ran down the stairs and he ran after her. And is that the time when Dylan heard, don't worry, everything's going to be okay. I'm here to help you. And then Xana ran to her room potentially to go get Ethan, and she fought valiantly. Unfortunately, Koberger overpowered her and then potentially did some damage to Ethan so that Ethan could not get up and chase up after him. We're not sure. It's all pure speculation. We don't know. We just know this is sort of the series of events. So this is the picture of the K-bar knife sheath. And as you can see, it has a snap right here. And the snap right here is where they had the touch DNA from him. So one of the controversies is that they got the DNA. So what did they do? They sent it off to the Idaho State Lab. And unfortunately, the Idaho State Lab he wasn't in the database, right? He's not a known criminal. So they didn't have his DNA. So they sent it off to the Othram Lab, which is where they did what's called IgG, or investigative genetic genealogy. So they take your DNA, they put it into a DNA database, They find some markers from your DNA that somewhat match somebody else's DNA in your family tree, and then they kind of go down from there. And so that is how they found Koberger and his, well, they they got it on the male side. Let's just say that. So here are two of the people who went through Koberger's devices. Jared and Heather Barnhart, they're with Celebrite. And one of the very interesting things about this case is that people wanted a connection. How did Koberger know these people? How was he connected to them? And why was he connected to them? Why these people? And there again, there's wide speculation because we just don't know, right? Apparently, Koberger had wiped his devices. He used a VPN to disguise where he was coming from. He destroyed his data information off of his computer, off of his cell phone. But remember, I told you, your cell phones will completely lie to you. You can't cover up everything. So here are a couple of the small tidbits that these two found on his device that they were going to testify to within his trial. Now remember, Koberger was a criminology student, and it is apparent that he has been thinking about this and that this was a premeditated, that he had planned this. He might not have planned the who, but he definitely planned the how, what, because as you may know, he purchased the K-bar knife and sheath and a sharpener back in March of 2022 before he even became a student at WSU, before he even arrived on campus. He didn't come to campus, I think, until July of 2022. So it's so he was planning this. So um so they searched. He had searched for He had searched for wiretaps, psychopaths, paranoid. He read an article about how police were still searching for the suspect vehicle, and in that, so as you may know, he had traveled from Washington State University. His dad had flew from Pennsylvania to Washington State University. They drove cross country from Washington State back to Pennsylvania for the quote unquote holiday break. And he was diligently trying to clean out his vehicle. And that's the other thing that was really interesting, is that there was no blood, no DNA found in his car. So again, when we talk about premeditated and pre-planning, obviously he, again, pure speculation, did after he commit these murders, that he took his clothes off and put them in a bag of some sort and transport them. I personally think, and we'll go back, I personally think, I think two things. So here he's at Genesee at number 5, and he's there for a good, I don't know, maybe we'll say 30 minutes, right? So he in Genesee, they have like your own car wash there, like your spray car wash. And Genesee is a very small town. Like their main strip is like nothing. And we're talking like podunk nowhere. Um, it's definitely very, very farm oriented in that area. But they do have a small like strip of downtown, you'll say. And it's right when you go into Genesee on the main road. They have a car wash there. My speculation is that he went and washed his car out, and that he also may have dumped the clothes in a dumpster or something there, because it wasn't until like 6 weeks later that the police actually caught him and the clothes were well gone. Now, the knife, on the other hand, there's pure speculation that people might have seen him in and around some of these side roads, parked, and perhaps maybe had buried the knife and then came back for it. So, or some people say when he was here in Clarkston that this is the Snake River and that he might have thrown the knife in the Snake River. They did try to search for the knife, and went to various places and did go through the Snake River to look for it, but it's not been located or found. Okay, so again, the information downloaded off his phone. He immediately looked into a detailing shop. He was going to try and he was shopping for another car online. This is when he was home during his break at Christmas time in December. So one of the things that we were going to talk about is when I said the BAU, the Behavior Analysis Unit. If you've ever watched like Criminal Minds or you watched there's some earlier programs on Netflix, I forget what it's called, but it talks about how the Behavioral Analysis Unit of the FBI came to fruition, right? They are the elite of the elite of psychologists and criminologists who put together a psychological profile of a person who commits crimes, right? They tell you, approximately how old this person is, what their race is, what their what their psychosis is, right? Are they a social person, antisocial person, what their behaviors are, etc. But one of the main things they talk about, which is triggers, right? Does somebody just grow up to be a killer? Perhaps. But typically, what happens is it's curated over time. And in this next video that we're going to show, I'm going to show you, you can kind of see how he was kind of curated by his things that he was researching, etc., and the things he was watching. But there was a trigger. And what was the trigger? To me, I feel like the trigger was he was a teaching assistant at WSU and being a PhD criminologist student. TAs don't make a lot of money. He didn't have a lot of money. So that when you look at the pictures of his apartment and you see how sparse things are, that's your typical PhD apartment. They don't have any money, so they don't have any fancy things. So he, as some of you know, he was being accused of uh, being unfair to his female students that he was TAing. He made some comments. He also he made his fellow coworkers and other students very uncomfortable by standing in the doorway and not letting them leave. He was very argumentative and he was very critical, I guess, of his female teachers versus his male teachers. And so he had an argument with his advisors and in which they were going to do an improvement plan on him. And that happened in November, early November of 2022. And in this, they were going to tell him he can remain as a student, but he can no longer be a teaching assistant. And he gets paid to be a teaching assistant. And so he's like, well, how am I going to afford to be here? Because this is, you have to pay for apartment, you have to pay for food, gas, your car, et cetera, whatever he was paying for, right? And without a job, sort of what was the purpose of him being there besides being criminology students? So I think that was the trigger that he was going to be fired from his job. And how could he explain this to his parents? How could he go on, right? Because this was his life. So he was thinking about these things. I think he stalked the girls. I really think that he did. I think that he had their Instagrams because the picture of the girls, this picture, and obviously this very famous picture was that day. And perhaps he was like, this is it. This is the day. Because Kaylee had come back. Kaylee lived there, but she was going in and out, and she had come back that week and she just bought a Jeep and she was very excited to show her friends her Jeep. So she was staying that weekend. And at WSU was Parents Weekend, and poor Xana's dad was in town for Parents Weekend at WSU. So just sad all around. So I believe that he saw these pictures and that he was like, okay, this has to be this has to be it. And remember, he also stalked the house. He stalked the area. He kind of knew sort of like what their routines were, etc., and when they were going out at night. And that night, we do know he stalked the area, and we'll go over that here in just a minute. And he would stop behind the house, and he could see Kaylee and Maddie's lights on in their bedroom, and perhaps the lights went off. That's when he decided to do this. And he was very brazen to do it because there are 6 people in this house. How did he know that he was going to be able to get away with it, I guess? I'm not sure. And did he anticipate that Ethan was going to be there? Ethan doesn't live there, but did he anticipate that, a male was going to be in the house? There are just many, many, many small things, and the time frame with which he did it was just incredible as well. But all right, so these are some of the things that Jared and Heather found on his phone. These are the creepy pictures that they found. This was the morning of the killings. Like I said, was he sleeping? Did he take a shower? And he gave his thumbs up thing. As you can see, he had not slept. His eyes are all baggy. And then here, I think this is a picture of him taken. I think this is in his house in Pennsylvania, and being creepy and weird. There are lots of creepy, weird pictures. Here is a picture of a video of the Indiana State Police pulling him over on his trip from WSU back to Pennsylvania. I secretly think the FBI was tracking him because he got pulled over twice by 2 state troopers in Indiana, both saying that he was following closely to another vehicle. Do you know anybody who has ever been pulled over by the state police, or anybody that they've been being pulled over because they're following too close to someone? Never, never. So I think they were just trying to track him. Somebody said that they were trying to look and see what the his hands look like, whether or not they had bruises and stuff on them. But mind you, this was like 6 weeks after the murders happened, or approximately 4 weeks after the murders happened. We would think that some of his injuries would have healed. All right, so let's take a moment. We're going to go look at this video. This is by Gray Hughes. And Gray Hughes is an incredible YouTuber who does a lot of digital analysis. And this one's pretty good. This one's a little bit early on because there's some information that's not in here that hasn't been posted. For example, the trigger, which was he was going to be fired from the university. It's not in here. I'm not sure exactly when this video is, but what I'm showing you is sort of his driving around and the mapping of his driving around. So let's go ahead and let's watch this and see where we get. I'm going to back it up just a smidge. Okay, here we go.
The crime itself. All right, so let's get started. Right up here in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, he purchased a balaclava at a Dick's Sporting Goods on January 10th. And then around March 20th, I'm sure law enforcement has the exact date, he purchased a K-bar knife and sharpener. Then on April 11th, while his balaclava and K-bar knife are sitting there right in his home, he applies for an internship with the Pullman Police Department. And that's way before he even moved over there. So on June 29th, that's the approximate date that he moved to Pullman, Washington. I wasn't able to find the precise date, but that's where it's all, it's mentioned right around June 29th or June 30th. And then July 9th, just 9 days after he's there is a party at the Grove, which is an apartment complex, which I believe it's just south of Moscow down here. I think it's right here in this area. I think this is it. Yeah, this is the Grove, and there was a pool party right there. So you can kind of see how close it is in relation to the house. So that looks like that is, as a crow flies, it's only 0.6 miles. So it's not far away at all. Driving, probably over a mile, because you have to go all the way up here and then take a left or go through these back streets right here. And you sort of wonder if Koberger followed somebody home that day, and that's how he ended up in that same area that night, utilizing the same cell tower resources as the individuals at 1122 King Road would be using. So then on July 9th, it says, now on Dateline, it said he was within 100 meters of the residence. Now, if that's true, it would be inside of this circle right here. So this is a 100-meter radius from the house, which is right there. And he would be inside of this. Now, that would be inside of the complex. I call this the complex, right inside this area here. There's only one way in and only one way out. Okay, and that's on King Road, which is right here. And, if you can't see that, let me see if I can move this over. All right, so there's only one way in right here. And this is Queen Road. And as we see, the vehicle drives around like this. So I'll use this vehicle to show you various things, since it's a lot easier to see than the mouse that is on the screen. All right, and then it says on July 10th, a woman he met at the Grove pool party, he sent this woman a text message that said, "Hey, I'm pretty sure we spoke about hiking trips yesterday. I really enjoyed that activity, so please let me know. Thanks." Then on August 1st, apparently, up until that point, he was within the same 100 meters. The documents only say that he utilized the same cell tower resources. So I'm not sure where this 100 meters thing is coming from. Maybe the FBI and the CAS data shows how close his phone was to the residence at that time. And then on August 16th, Koberger searches for Bundy and finds an article by Amelia, I think it's like Pedno, a search for Ted Bundy. Then on August 16th as well, Maddie posted an image of all 5 of the residents. And then on August 16th, Kaylee talks to officers in regards to a noise complaint, where she's outside talking on a noise complaint. Some people think Koberger's the one who called in the noise complaint, but apparently it was a female who called that in. Then on August 21st, Koberger is issued a citation, and that's at Farm Road and Perimeter Drive in Moscow, Idaho. And we have seen video of that traffic stop, and I actually have that. Then on August 26, 2022, he searched for when can a cop detain you, and searched for forced, passed out, drugged, sleeping, and those are all on a Google search. So it seems like he was planning on, now that we know what happened, on attacking somebody that was passed out and, just really disturbing stuff right there. Then we have on September 10th, Na-Yoon Ko break-in at her apartment. A watch and a letter is missing in a security setup. Suspect Koberger, but then, so Koberger went in and helped her with a security setup. And then, because she trusted Koberger prior to that. And now she believes that maybe it was Koberger that broke in and maybe set something up on her security system where he could watch her. Then on September 30th, there was a Google search for sociopathic traits in college students. Then on October 1st, Koberger's phone started to appear again in Moscow near 1122 King Road. And then on October 14th, 2022, he completed his third visit near 1122 King Road, and it says within 100 meters, they're saying. And then on October 14th, there was a traffic stop. He was pulled over in Pullman by a female officer during the day regarding claiming an intersection. So, that was probably earlier in the day.
So I'm just going to pause it there. As you see, there are the two incidences where he's been pulled over. And I'm not sure about this Pullman one, whether or not she made an incident report and if they could have searched that. But the other one was the Latah County Sheriff's Department who had pulled him over and gave him a ticket. I think he was speeding. And so they had him. They had him. I think they had him. Moscow Police, good job. You had him. All right, let's continue on.
Okay. And then this one is completed his third visit near 1122 King Road within 100 meters. And then we have on October 19th, Googled, can psychopaths behave pro-socially? Like he's trying to figure out how he can act differently. Then on November.
Okay, so remember how I talked earlier about the BAU and the Behavior Analysis Unit? Again, Koberger himself is questioning his mental status here. And again, he put himself down a deep, dark path. Was he prone to violence? Was he, I mean, sounds like he grew up in a nice household, but you never know what happens behind closed doors. And so we just don't know what his fixation is. We know that American Psycho was one of his favorite movies, and he emulated some of those tactics. Anyways, let's continue on. So you can see I'm very, very interested into the psyche of these people. Let's continue on. Like why, why, why these people? Why this time? Why did you do it? And how do you have the capacity to do it? It's just beyond me. Let's continue.
7th, or about a week before the homicides, Koberger's phone was within 100 meters of 1122 King Road again. Now, this is just what Dateline is saying. We have no evidence from the documents that the phone was within 100 meters. We have information that it utilized the same cell tower resources. Then on November 10th, Koberger stopped using his debit card. Then on November 12th, Koberger was watching YouTube, watching a YouTube video. Then on November 12th at 9 p.m., Xana and Ethan and Bethany are all over at Sigma Chi. And Sigma Chi, in relation to the house, is just right across the street right there. This is where Ethan Chapin, Xana Kernodle, and Bethany Funk were at some time prior, earlier in the evening, right around 9. And then at 9 o'clock, Kaylee posted one lucky girl to be surrounded by these people. And that's that famous picture I'll show you right here that has all 5 of them in it. And then on, late in the evening on the 12th, Kaylee and Madison are drinking at the Corner Club at around 10, maybe 10:30. Then 11:13, 2022, again, this is now we're in the early morning hours at 1:37. Kaylee and Madison leave the Corner Club. So they were there for, 2 to 2.5 hours. And then at 1:39, that's the time that Kaylee, Madison, and their friend Jack Showalter walked by 112 North Main Street. Man, 112, 1112. I mean, it's just crazy. And then right at 1:42 is the approximate time that Kaylee and Madison and their friend Jack walked. They're still walking down the street, and then they make it to the grub truck at 1:43, and Kaylee and Madison bought some food. And then at 1:45, Kaylee calls a private driver. And then at 1:49, an Uber driver arrived at grub truck. And I think he's sort of off the books Uber driver, I believe.
I just have to pause here for a second. When you see these videos and you see these videos of the girls and you see like them living their best lives and doing the college things that they're doing, you want to scream at this, you want to scream at the screen and be like, girls, girls, something's going to happen, something's going to happen. And you want to save them, right? You want to be like, don't go to the house or go to somebody else's house or warn everybody. But you just can't. And in hindsight, you can't go back. And it breaks my heart. Like I'm gonna cry here in just a second. It breaks my heart to watch these videos because like you wish you could do something to save them. So let's continue.
I'm not sure this is the same one that Dylan tried calling later. I think so though. At 1:53, they leave the grub truck, and then I think they actually have video of Kaylee and Madison, private driver, heading home on another camera we aren't aware of at this point, but I remember reading about it. And then at 1:56, Kaylee and Madison are dropped off at 1122 King Road. And then at 2 o'clock, Bethany and Dylan, Madison and Kaylee all go up to Kaylee's room. So apparently Dylan was in her room sleeping and then woke up, and then they all went upstairs and they went into Kaylee's room right here. And that was at 2 o'clock. And then at 2:10, Dylan Mortensen sends a text to the Uber driver and to see if they're still working that night. And then at 2:13, the Uber driver sent a message to Dylan Mortensen confirming that he was driving. But then Dylan decided not to go out. Her and Bethany, they were thinking of maybe getting grub truck because they saw how yummy the macaroni and cheese was that Kaylee and Madison had. But they decided not to go. And then about 2:25, Maddie, Bethany, and Dylan go downstairs to take Murphy out because Kaylee was getting ready for bed. And I'm just estimating around 2:25. And then 2:26, Kaylee begins calling her boyfriend Jack while laying in her bed. Now, that 2:25 here, I mean, this could be something like 2:20. Maybe I'll change that to that, where they went downstairs. And then 2:26, Kaylee begins calling her boyfriend Jack, and I believe she's laying in her bed at this point. And then at 2:27, these are estimates here, Madison and Bethany take Murphy outside, and then Dylan goes to bed. So as they all went downstairs, Dylan went to bed, Bethany and Madison went outside. And then I'm just going to say maybe 2 minutes later, Bethany is cold, so goes inside. She places something in the cupboard, her own cupboard, I guess, and then grabs a bag of chips. All right. Then at 2:34-ish, Bethany is in bed watching Baby Daddy. And then maybe around like 2:37, Madison asked Bethany through the door because Bethany said it was locked. She asked, "Hey, have you seen Murphy?" And Bethany said no. Then at 2:39, Madison goes to her room to go to bed. So we don't know if she found Murphy or what, because Madison was really highly intoxicated. So we don't know. But I think at that point, she goes to her room. She takes off her jeans and her Doc Marten boots, and then she changes into the sweatpants and the pink T-shirt that she was wearing. And she goes to bed, and that's probably like at 2:39. And then at 2:42, CAS data shows that Koberger is at home at 1630 Northeast Valley Road. He's literally just about to leave the residence. And then at 2:43, Kaylee goes to Madison's room to have her call Jack, and Kaylee got into the same bed with Madison. So I think Kaylee was in her bed and had a thought like, I wonder if Madison calls Jack, maybe he'll answer. So she goes to her room, says, hey, would you call Jack? He's not answering. So gets in the bed, and they're just kind of, goofing around like, hey, call Jack, you call Jack. And so that was right around 2:43, I believe, when that phone call was made, and they're together. So then at 2:44, Kaylee calls Jack for the sixth time. And then at 2:44, during that same time frame, Madison begins calling Jack, right? And then right here at 2:44, Koberger's White Elantra is seen at Southeast Nevada Street and Northeast Stadium Way. So that location, if we go way up in the air here, is right over here. This is Nevada Street right there. All right. So that's where it's spotted at 244. And then at 247, the cast cell tower data shows Koberger's phone is in Southeast Pullman. So that's exactly where that is. And then at 252, we're on this one right here. Madison calls Jack for the third time. And then at 252 again, Kaylee calls Jack for the final time. So she took back over the calling duties. And then at 253, Madison calls Bethany Funk. You know, I find that call sort of interesting. Was she calling Bethany to say, hey, have you still seen Murphy? Or, hey, we found Murphy. Don't worry about it. Something like that. I don't know. But maybe Murphy is still out and about, and perhaps Madison left the slider in the back open. I mean, the slider was broken regardless because they had to use chairs to keep it shut after the homicide. So the slider was open. Now, did Madison leave it open to let Murphy come back in? We likely are never going to get the answer to that question. And then at 2:53 a.m., Koberger's White Elantra is seen on camera again in Pullman at the Nevada Street and Stadium Way. And then 1 minute later, the cast data shows that Koberger turned his phone off. And when he turned it off, that means he turned off all the settings, etc. We've heard that recently. It wasn't just a typical, you just turn off your phone. He turned everything off on the phone prior. And that's at 2:54. And then at 3:02, it's seen at Floyd's Cannabis Shop. So this is Nevada Street. Now, I believe this is what he did. He drove down like this and around and down and came out right here, avoiding any of the cameras over here. And because that is Nevada Street, and he was heading in that direction, south. And then he drove like this down the highway. And I timed this. It's exactly right on the money that right here, he passes Floyd's Cannabis Shop at 3:02. All right. Then the next information that we have, because all of the people in the residence, there's no information about them texting or anything. They're all asleep at this point at 3:26. But this is Koberger right here. So at 3:26, he's at 787 Indian Hills Drive. And then he's at 763 and 755 Indian Hills Drive, all at these time frame. So 3:26:10, 3:26:35, and 3:26:43. And where that is on Google Earth is right down here. And so for, there must be 20 minutes.
So, you see how detailed that is? See, one of the things that I think Koberger thought he was going to get away with it in this small town and what have you was that he just probably thought it was like, this podunk town, they don't have nothing there, and they're not going to find me. He had no idea about how many cameras and ring cameras that the residents had that caught him at all of these places. So you'll see Gray Hughes does an amazing job. He's a great YouTuber. He puts all of these timelines and things together. So definitely go check him out. I'll link him when I post this. So let's continue on. It's incredible.
He went somewhere else and killed time, and they don't seem to have any surveillance footage of that. But eventually he comes in here and he drives right here past 787, 763, and 755 right there. And then he's going to make his way just like this. And then let me make it a little bit larger so you can see. So after passing those three homes, drives up like that, and then makes his way to Steiner Avenue. Then from Steiner goes this direction. And that is at let's see, it says 326 Indian Hills Drive and then 32856 at 1311 South Main Street. And that is right at the intersection, and that's the A&W right here. He's spotted driving by this A&W going like this. All right, and that is that. And I think that time is slightly off. Just the timing doesn't make sense that there's only 6 seconds from here until Ridge Road. But either way, 328.56 and then 329.02, it's seen on camera 2 at the Ridge Road, 1125 Ridge Road. And then at 329.04, also on camera 1 at Ridge Road. And that is right here. So there's a camera in the front here. I think it films this direction, and then a camera over here that films that direction. And the vehicle drove by like this, picked up on both cameras, and then it heads this direction and going towards Taylor Avenue. And now it's on Taylor Avenue. And then it says at 329.48, 1320 Linda Lane in Moscow, Idaho, Koberger's white Elantra is spotted on Taylor Avenue. So let's go back to that. And it drives like this. And this is Linda Lane right here. So Linda Lane, there's a Linda Lane. I'll use this so you can just see what I'm talking about. There's a camera right on top of this building here. And it films down Linda Lane right there. So when the car drives by, you see it. And in fact, let's take a look at that. See right there, 329.37. And so just keep that in mind. I'm going to zoom in down here. And I'm going to play it. And you'll see some headlights coming through here. And it drives by right there. And they know that that's what this vehicle is based on the timing. So there it is, driving by. All right, and now I'll go to the clock, which is unfortunately down here. It's 329.51 after it's already driven by. And so we see right here at 329.48, it drove by there. And then at 3:30 and 22 seconds, the vehicle enters the complex, I call it, into the King Road area. So it enters the King Road area at 3:30 and 22 seconds. And you'll see it right there on the clock. And here it comes right now. As soon as you see it right there, that's the number they use. Right now, boom. 3:30 and 22 seconds, you could see it. And here comes the vehicle. And it enters the complex. All right, so this is where I'm going to stop part 1. I think there might be 3 parts to this. And we'll go through each element. And then when it's all said and done, you can just watch them all at the same time in order, and you'll have the complete timeline, at least where I have it now. I'm sure we'll be adding stuff as documents come in, etc. The part about the cast information is kind of difficult to understand regarding like when each of the dates were. I'd love to see each of the dates that his vehicle was within.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and pause it right there for right now. And this is all that we're going to do today because we're already at over an hour into the stream. But we will pick up where this is at because this is only 3:30 in the morning. And as you may know, that Mr. Koberger, unfortunately, did the deed around 4 a.m. And there's some other elements in there. Remember, a DoorDash delivery driver came in during this time frame, and he makes a couple of passes, etc. And like I said, Gray Hughes is amazing at putting all of this together and showing you the exact routes, etc. So when you say, well, how do you know this was pre-planned? How do you know that he calculated these things? First of all, he's not from the area. He's from Pennsylvania. He's not from Pullman, Washington. He's not from Moscow, Idaho. And as you see on the Gray Hughes things, he drives the back way to get around to go to this area. The police station is like right up there. Um, it's amazing. I will give you a map and show you those areas on the next one. So he deliberately knew sort of a back road way to get around. And you'll see he kind of drives around and drives the back way a couple of different times, uh, checking on the girls to find out if they are, when their lights go out, and to do the deed. So we're going to remove this, and we're just going to continue here. So, as you know, Koberger was charged. He ended up pleading guilty to the murders and received 4 consecutive life sentences. He's without appeal or parole, and he was set to go to trial on August 4th of 2025. He was very deliberate in crafting his narrative. He had more than two, he had 3 excellent lawyers who were doing their job to defend him. And I believe that he orchestrated some of the uh, reasonings as to why he shouldn't have the IgG data, why the grand jury shouldn't indict him. These are all pre motions prior to the trial, and that things were being super, super delayed. And remember, at this time, there was a gag order in place. So the families didn't know any of this information. They had no idea that he was stalking them. They had no idea half of the information that came out. And it's super, super sad because you want to know the answers. Why were your children taken away from you? And how did this monster do this, right? So there was a trial that was going to start on August the 4th. He ended up pleading on July the 2nd. I think perhaps maybe he didn't want to be put to death because the death penalty was on the table during this plea agreement that was taken off, but he wasn't able to appeal, which saves the families the despair of many, many years of having to relive everything over and over again. So that helps them out. Recently, he was upset that he had to pay restitution for the urns. That was resolved. He needed to go ahead and pay them. So, one of the most important things why is this coming up now? So, it has been reported lately that the families of the 4 victims, here we have Ethan Chapin, Maddie Mogan, Kayla Gonzalez, Xana Kernodle, the families are going to do a civil suit against WSU. Why are they doing this? So in my next episode, we'll do a little bit deep dive. It has not been filed just yet. It's just uh, it it's information from the Gonzalez family through their lawyer that the families are going to sue. There's been some documentation that has come out or come to light from professors, students, etc., making the claims that Koberger was creepy, he was stalky, the allegations against him about being abusive to women, um, a variety of things. And they are framing the narrative that WSU knew. There was actually an email from one of the professors that said, like, sure, we're going to go ahead and we're going to let him graduate, but he is, a threat to society. And she wouldn't be surprised if she heard about him. I'm paraphrasing. I'll get the exact phrasing. So they feel that WS knew that he was a threat. How this is going to play out is very, very interesting. So I am interested in getting those documents and going through them. They have not been filed just yet. So when they do, we'll definitely bring that to you. So this is currently what we have in reference to Brian Koberger and the Idaho 4. And as I stated, you know, the most important thing that I would like to reiterate is that we remember them and their legacy. These 4 students were doing what college students do, having fun, living their best lives before their adult lives kicked in, before they got jobs, got married, had families, etc. And it is quite devastating that they don't have that anymore. And my heart goes out to the families. My heart goes out to the 2 survivors, Dylan and Bethany. And the whole town, everybody who is involved, the police officers, everybody who has been involved with this case. It has been quite devastating, and some people are never going to heal from it. The town is slowly going through the paces. The university is slowly, you know, trying to heal from this, and the families are able to move on just ever so slightly, just slightly, barely every day. So when we go over these things, it's not to give any more credit or credence or license to Koberger and you know make light of what he's done. It's very devastating. It's very tragic, and we're very, 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 very sorry that this happened. So that's all I have for today. Um, Stay tuned tomorrow. Make sure you like and subscribe. Remember, I am trying to get up to 50 subscribers. I got to explain what is it that I do to people who don't know me. So make sure you like and subscribe and get that notification as to what I'm going to be posting next. Who knows what's going to pop off the rest of the day? I'm going to do a Brian Walsh update, and then we're going to see what comes up for tomorrow. So thanks again for watching. See you again tomorrow.
Thanks for watching Legalese 123. If you like what you saw, please like and subscribe for more content.